All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Headlines here at Post and Courier Colombia. This is our monthly look where behind what we're doing here in the capital city for the state's largest newspaper, where we talk to some of our reporters about the stories that they're working on, some of the issues that they're covering. I'm Andy Shain. I am managing editor of Post and Courier's Colombia's newsroom. I have with us today Stephen Fastenau, who covers local government for us. Stephen is our newest addition to our team. And I think, before we get into today's topic, which is the Colombia mayor's race and the Colombia elections that are upcoming this year, let's have Stephen kind of introduce himself to everybody, talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you went to school, that kind of thing, and a little bit about you.
Sure. I grew up in South Carolina. I graduated from USC's journalism school. I was also a political science minor, so I had some classes with the late Don Fowler. My wife Molly is a Columbia native, product of Richland One schools, and we live in Forest Acres. And I've been a reporter for about the past 15 years, most recently in Beaufort, covering the city of Beaufort for the past 5 years in City Hall there. So that's a good experience. And then joined this past December team of 12 reporters here in Columbia. And as you said, cover Columbia City Hall, City Council, and Richland County matters for the most part.
Yeah. And Stephen's talking to us from our office at the corner of Hardin and Gervais, which is one of the most traveled intersections in the city, as you will hear in the background, as well as being a block away from the home of EMS in the county. So obviously, if you hear some cars and some ambulances, that's why. We're right in the thick of things, right there in the office.
That's right. It's inevitable.
It is for sure. And Stephen, we also want to thank you for being one of the rare people who are willing to come inland from the coast to come work. Come work. As always.
That's right. I traded my coastal elite status for blue collar working man in the Midlands. So traded my blue check on Twitter too. So I'm just a regular Joe now.
All right. Well, we're going to work on getting you that blue check back. I'll add that on my list of things to do for you. So as I said, we're here to talk about the Columbia City elections, and of course the big one is the mayor's race. And I think just also to help catch some people up and to get them going, just if you can sort of give a rough overview of what's happening with Mayor Steve Benjamin, because of course, we wouldn't be having a mayor's race if it weren't for what was happening with him.
Sure. So February 4th, Steve Benjamin announced he would not seek a fourth term, which I guess was kind of an open secret for a while. And I think many people expect him to move on to bigger and better things, either higher office or a role in the Democratic Party in some form. Columbia's had, 2 mayors in the past 30 years, so it's kind of a big deal. But people were ready, once he announced it, started things moving. But that was kind of the timeline there. I think it was just, expected, and sort of some news got out, and we got ahead of it a little bit to just look at his tenure. And so it's been a busy month since then.
And you did some great work ahead of time. We knew that this was kind of coming. We had a story even in January, sort of with the speculation, and of course even the idea of some people who were ramping up campaigns in case he did formally announce that. And then when we were getting sort of some more closer to it, talking a little bit more about his legacy. And let's go ahead and just dive into that a little bit. What will Steve Benjamin, what is going to be sort of what he's known for when his tenure ends, but also what kind of challenges await his successor?
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess the obvious thing that I heard in talking to numerous people about him and his time the past 10 years is just the growth downtown. Just how much activity has come to downtown since he took office. And I guess it's up for debate maybe how much of that was his doing, but he certainly made that a priority. Just trying to draw more people moving around downtown. And it's as far as down to the littlest things, like asking the farmers market to move to consider moving downtown, and that's become, Soda City Market, which is the production that it is today. He talks about the 450,000 square foot elephant in the room, which was the SCANA building that has since become, apartments. So that Main Street area is a big part of it. The Bull Street project, I think, more than anything, is probably going to be among the top, tick marks of his legacy, and just how big of a deal that was, how much money the city is committed to that project in the ballpark, and making sure it works. And he certainly feels like that's going to pay off.
And he's brought a national profile too. I mean, with being the leader of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and that as well. And it's, even he was even in the first round, in the first cut of Hillary Clinton VP candidates back in 2016. So it's interesting that some of the other things that he's brought, but certainly some of the things he's got he's done for the city in that time. That said. Who wants to replace him? Who do we understand is out there? And again, some folks probably know this, but some folks might not.
Sure, and I mean, if you've been paying attention, these are probably familiar names. Tamika Devine, who's a longtime councilwoman, first elected in 2002. She's an attorney. She was the first African American elected to a citywide seat. Certainly the first Black woman elected to that seat. She's very close with the mayor, with Steve Benjamin. They're godparents to each other's children. So that's a relationship that's been there for a while. She's a board member of the National League of Cities. Sam Johnson is a former Benjamin aide. He worked in Steve Benjamin's office for several years on various policy initiatives, and helping run some events like the famously hot New Year's Eve. He works with Nixon Pruitt and government affairs and policy issues. And then the third one we know about right now is Daniel Rickerman. He's a longtime council member as well. Came on council about the same time as Tamika in 2004, I believe. He was first in an at-large seat, and then later elected to represent District 4. He's a restaurant owner, an investor. He told me he's been working to develop renewable energy projects. So that's kind of where his background.
And these three have formally said they are running, correct? I mean, they've come out, they've had announcements. They've formally thrown their hat in the ring. That's
right. The mayor's announcement was kind of the big domino. After that, Devine had a formal announcement. Sam Johnson had a news conference to announce his bid, and it's clear. And then Daniel Rickerman is a little bit. He's not quite as gung ho at this point. He thinks he's going to get started maybe mid-April. And I think, especially Tamika and Sam Johnson, they were ready to go. They've had. They got their websites up and their endorsements running, so they've expected this and were prepared, despite what they might have said before February 4th.
And part of that is and talk a little bit about the idea that Tamika and Sam, have ties to the mayor, and how that might play out in the election versus what is Daniel's sort of role on council and probably will be his role in this election as a choice.
Sure. Yeah, it certainly puts the mayor in a tough spot when it comes time for, if he throws his weight behind anybody, because he's got a couple people he's close to. As I mentioned, he's very close to Tamika Devine. She's the godmother of his daughter. They've talked over the past couple of years about his future, and I'm sure this has been, a topic of those conversations. And then Sam Johnson also working so closely with the mayor in his office, helping run his office and his policies. I know he considers him a close friend and ally as well. So that's, they've kind of established themselves on the mayor's side of things. And if you're a voter and appreciate what has happened in the city over the past 10 years, and those might be our candidates. And then Rickerman is kind of, it's a nonpartisan election, but seems to be more of an established conservative candidate. He's talked about, a safe, clean city, creating an opportunity for investment in the city. There's one of those ambulances you talked about. I hope everybody's okay. But yeah, so he's focused on removing barriers to do business here. He really pushed for a recent economic study that kind of laid out some of the issues that Colombia seems to face in regards to the combined tax rates with the school district and Richland County that may serve to suppress some investment here. So that's a big part of, I'm sure, what he'll talk about over the next several months.
Real quick before I go on to the next question, I just want to remind folks out there that you can go ahead and ask us questions. We'll leave some time at the end to answer questions from folks. So please go ahead and put some questions in the queue. We do have a couple of questions that people submitted before this, so do that. Also, Stephen's going to take a moment and he will include in the chat for everybody his email address and his Twitter handle, so you can reach out to him or follow him on social media as well. So I wanted to go ahead and tell folks about that, but please feel free to give us send us some questions to answer. So Stephen, I'll do a slow wind up as you type away for a moment.
Sure.
Tamika, Isaac Devine, and Daniel Rickerman were up for re-election for their council seats, but of course they've decided to go ahead and throw their hat in the ring for mayor, which means their seats open up. What is that going to mean for council, and what's council going to kind of maybe look like at the end of all this, at the end of in 2022?
Sure. Yeah, so in addition to that large seat in District 4 seat, there's Sam Davis is stepping down from his seat representing District 1. He was the longest tenured member of council. So there's the potential for four new faces on a 7-member body, which is big for the direction of the city. Obviously, if you get people in who have completely different ideas than what's been happening, there's a potential for a big shift in how the city thinks and functions, depending on what these people feel policy wise. And then in addition to that, you've got Howard Duvall in an at-large seat, and Ed McDowell, who might be looking to roll off council when their terms are up in a couple of years. So there's potential for more widespread change down the road, but certainly that's something that people have talked about is how the potential for fresh blood here and new ideas.
It'll be interesting, and just to give folks a little preview of something that we're going to have published or post Sunday in the Post and Courier Colombia, is the fact that, let alone we're going to have a real big makeover on city council, but we've already had a big makeover on county council. Talk a little bit about just give people a little bit of a preview of that story that you're going to work on that's going to come out Sunday.
Sure. I've just been talking to various people in the community about the change on county council. You got the potential. The county obviously has had its issues in the past several years. They've got some big things to tackle, and issues of spending. There's been criticism how they've handled their finances. So there seems to be a will to get things in order. To stop creating embarrassing headlines. So that's I think a big part of this new council's job, is to get things on track. But so I'm just working on talking to as many people as I can and get their sense of what this new council's direction might be, what things we might see from the county. At the same time, also with the city, in preparation for kind of a broad changeover. What issues are important to people, what maybe has not been at the forefront that they feel should be the focus of a new body with new fresh eyes on things. So keep working that for the next couple of days, and I'll be ready for Sunday.
All right, that's fine, and we can have a discussion of when we can talk about when is that going to be ready, so I can expect to read it. We can have that discussion offline, and I think learning how the sausage gets made in the sense of how we put together a story and how much I have to nudge my reporters to say, is it ready? Is it ready? Yeah,
That's right. There'll be numerous Slack messages before then. I'm sure we'll get it worked out.
Exactly. And I'm sure if there was a way of muting me on Slack, you would do it, and I would totally understand with that. So, obviously, with this idea that we're going to have some new members of council, at least as I said, 3 council seats that are going to switch over. Who's thrown their hat in the ring to want to be on council? Take us through a little bit, at least, of folks that we know who've done it, and folks that we're pretty sure about.
Sure. Yeah, so the at-large seats, people who've made their intentions known. One is Heather Bauer. She ran for House District 75 last year, lost in the Democratic primary in a close race with Rhodes Bailey. She's an IT project manager, business owner who co-owns a gym.
And she's running for the at-large. She's looking at the at-large seat that Tamika's giving up, correct?
That's correct. Yes, at-large seat. She's talked about just wanting to be part of this change coming to the city, this opportunity for a new direction. I think part of her platform is addressing basic needs, making sure people have housing, food security, safe city, looking at opportunities for investment and helping small businesses, which is obviously an interest of hers professionally. She's noted that during COVID, their small business had to close down, and they've had to reopen under CDC guidelines, but just bringing that small business experience and a taste of political experience after last year's race. Another at-large candidate who has declared is Oddity Bustles. She is a public health researcher, has a doctorate in public health. She directs research for the South Carolina Children's Trust, which works to prevent child abuse. And so obviously with her public health background amid a pandemic, I think that's a big part of, she's talked about using data and good science to make informed decisions as the city continues to work through COVID-19 and its response and the vaccine rollout and everything that goes with that. She's worked with Resilient Richland, which is a United Way program that addresses childhood trauma, and also volunteered for the census last year. Also for that at-large seat, the state has reported that Columbia Attorney Tyler Bailey is considering a run for that seat. I have not talked to Tyler yet. Then in District 1, for Sam Davis's seat, Tina Herbert, who is an attorney who worked in the city directing the Office of Business Opportunity, has said she's strongly considering a run. I think we probably expect an announcement in the next month or so. She told me she has a daughter getting married next month, so that's kind of her focus right now. But I think she worked in the Office of Business Opportunity, which helped facilitate loans and resources for small and minority-owned businesses. And she left before Steve Benjamin began his last term, and now practices law. I'm not got anybody speaking out about the District 4 seat that Daniel Rickerman will be vacating. I've heard Jonathan Milling, who won a special election for school board last year and then lost his seat in the general election. Might be a possibility there, but when I spoke to him earlier this month, he was recovering from COVID and focused on his work. So nothing on that seat as of right now.
Well, I'll take this opportunity to say, if you're watching out there or know someone who is thinking about running for council, please reach out to Stephen, and we'd like to write about it and report on it. So please feel free to use us as a resource, to share the information. We want to know the news. That's very important for us to be to be in front of this and to be on top of this, as we have been, through the beginning of the year, and to continue on that. So please keep us in mind, or if there's other obviously events going on with that. So Stephen, I guess we're going to go to the portion of our session here where we take questions from folks. And again, remember that you can go to the Q&A function and submit a question, and we'll see what we can do about answering it. And the first one actually came before, came from folks who registered. We also asked if you had any questions, and this question is pretty straightforward. It says, what do you expect to be the effective population growth in the city and the surrounding areas? Columbia is not growing as fast as maybe some other South Carolina cities, but we are growing here. And with, of course, the affordability, especially, and obviously, days like today, the nice weather. We're not going to talk about the summer. That's, that's for another session. But, what do you think some of the issues are going to be, impacting the city as we grow and as patterns change?
Sure. Well, I think, the biggest thing that I've heard, just, in the past couple months, probably the number one topic has been affordable housing. At all levels have housing that fits the needs of the people, and certainly, the more people who move into this area, the bigger that need might become. But there have been some high-profile issues with affordable housing here recently with Allen Benedict Court. It's going to be demolished. The residents of Marion Street high rise are going to be moved out in May, I believe, is what the housing authority has said. That's going to be an issue of this campaign. Certainly, I believe is affordable housing. Just in general, with more people, I think it's the basic infrastructure and service needs. Water and sewer. The city's working to repair the Columbia Canal after the flood in 2015. There's ongoing sewer projects. The city continues to have issues with sewer spills. They've been working on, I think for the past several years, trying to fix a lot of those issues they've had.
All right, so Jim Reed has a question. Jim asks, since the Columbia form of government is a weak mayor and a strong city manager, why is the position of mayor any more important than a city council member?
That's a good question. So the mayor only has one vote, just like everybody else. I think when you talk to people, like I talked to Tamika at Devine recently about why jump from council to mayor, it's the platform. They feel they have a bigger pulpit to get things done as mayor. They can pull people together. When you pick up the phone and call somebody and say, you're the mayor of Columbia, it's easier to get them on the phone than maybe a council member. So I think a big part of that is just collaboration. Maybe I don't think anybody would argue that maybe ego is a part of that as well. You're the main person. You're the face of the city. So that's with that comes a certain degree of power. That I think is attractive to a lot of people.
Well, and again, people reach out to you because you're the mayor. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you have all the chips or not. You're the one that, if something happens, CNN, Fox News, New York Times wants to talk to, whether, or obviously dignitaries want to talk to, they want to talk to the mayor, and they don't, they may not know the machinations of a city council, but, they just know you're the person in charge. Right. You're the person at the head of the pyramid.
And that's one thing Benjamin has obviously done is raise that platform on a national level. I talked to a state lawmaker from my story about his tenure, and he was just telling me he travels all over the country, and everywhere he goes, people tell him that Steve Benjamin is a friend. There's a reach there now that he's kind of elevated that office beyond maybe what you would expect of a typical mayor's duties.
And it's interesting because we do exist in a state where the governor is weak. The legislature is strong. The governor, people say, why would you want to be governor when you really can't have control over the budget and some other things? But in the end, the governor, whether it's Nikki Haley, Henry McMaster, Mark Sanford, and so on, they have the microphone. They have the ability to do something because, again, they are the governor of the state and can have something to say and can do some things. So let me throw out another question that Jim Reed sort of gave us here. Since Sam Johnson has not served as mayor nor as a councilman, does he have an advantage over Daniel Rickerman and Tamika Isaac Devine because he cannot be held responsible for any issues in the city that they can be? So the idea that, again, Sam is the one non-elected official of the three who's not run, does that give him a leg up because that lack of a track record in making some decisions? Some obviously that didn't make folks happy.
That's an interesting question. I guess he could be tied to some of the mayor's policies while he was in office. But certainly think if you want a fresh start, if you don't want status quo, then somebody who hasn't been on council might be an attractive candidate. And the mayor, I think Steve Benjamin has pointed out recently, he did not have experience on council when he was elected. So yeah, I mean that might be something he has going for him is no track record to pin him on, and I think it would be difficult for Devine to to criticize him for anything that happened under his time with the mayor's office, her being so close to Benjamin. And I imagine at some point they will, even though they don't say it, they might hope for his endorsement down the road. So that I guess they might have to tread lightly there. But that is true. He does not have the tenure on council that Rickerman and Devine have, certainly.
Well, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions or anything like that, but I mean, Stephen, let me just wrap it. Let me just sort of ask you a final question of just, you've come from Beaufort. You covered a different town. I mean, Beaufort's smaller, of course, than Columbia, but it's it's a city government. They've got issues and things like that. What are some of the take away? Of course, it's on the coast and you have those coastal issues, but just as a town and as some of the issues you've heard about in your time working here, how does what's happening here in in Columbia and Richland County compare with what you were seeing in Beaufort County?
Sure. Well, I think one similarity is Beaufort's former mayor, he just left office, Billy Kaiserling, had not the profile that Steve Benjamin has, but he, had carved out a popular, national and certainly statewide figure for himself, on big issues like opposing offshore drilling. He really worked for bringing a national park to Beaufort. I don't know how many people know that Beaufort County now has a national park to the Reconstruction era. That era was huge. That area was huge because the Union soldiers occupied it so early in the Civil War. So in that regard, we had a high-profile mayor in Beaufort to a degree. But they, as far as similarities, they have the same budget issues, I think, on a much smaller scale with the pandemic. With dealing with state roads, county roads, who pays for what. There's the blame game where you point to the next jurisdiction up the line. But I think Beaufort is more, they're kind of a small scale. Charleston, a lot of their issues are flooding, which certainly Columbia has experienced, flooding, drainage issues that they're working through, environmental protections, just managing growth. Beaufort's a small city, but it's really, it gets put on lists every year. New York Times best places to travel, Southern Living's best small towns. So they have a steady stream of people coming that, people want to retire there. It's just a nice place to relax, and that's caused a lot of strain on, with new development, things that Beaufort was once a small, quaint city. And to the question earlier about Columbia's population growth, it's certainly a different scale here, but it's similar growth issues.
Well, for sure. I mean, hopefully we bring some of that mojo of getting Columbia some of those that recognition, like the coastal towns.
Certainly, one thing that did not happen in Beaufort was this long of an election season. nothing in Beaufort. We check who filed in August. We check in with them every now and then. There's there's certainly not this lead up to an election like this. So this is new, starting in February, covering a city election is kind of exciting.
Yeah, exactly. We brought you in at a great time, and we're really happy to have you here. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching today, and obviously if you do read the Post and Courier, thank you. If you're a subscriber, really thank you. And if you're not a subscriber, I want to be able to thank you. So please consider a subscription to the state's largest newspaper with the state's largest news gathering operation. 13 reporters and editors here in Colombia alone, let alone the 80 plus we have statewide in Myrtle Beach, Greenville, and even in that Charleston place that they talk about down there. I wanted to tell you that we have newsletters here in Colombia. We have a daily headlines newsletter. We have a twice a week business newsletter. We have a weekend newsletter. We have a food newsletter. Very easy to find it on our website, postandcourier.com/Colombia. And we want you to subscribe to those. I want you to read Stephen's stuff. And we want to hear from you. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us stories that we're missing. Tell us good stuff. Tell us bad stuff. We want to hear it all. So, and again, keep Stephen, obviously in your thoughts as for city coverage and for county coverage. We want to know about that. So to everybody, again, thank you for watching today. Thank you for your support of both the Post and Courier and of journalism in general. And I want you all to have a great Thursday, and obviously get outside. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day.
Thanks, guys.